We had some dancing yesterday at our second anniversary celebration. We had some great music and a lot of dancing. It was just a great affair yesterday as we celebrated our second year here on KBLA Talk 1580. So once again, thank you for all of you who came out yesterday, for all of you who've supported us over these last couple of years. It means a lot. It was an emotional day in some ways because it just occurred to me that that time went so fast, man. And here we are today commencing year 3. And as I've done in the first 2 hours today, let me do once again this final hour and thank all of those sponsors who made our second anniversary celebration yesterday such a rousing success. SEIU 2015, SEIU 721, the Black Pack, Holly Mitchell, our great supervisor, the Weingard Foundation, Caltrans, Jazzy J's Sweets, K-Girls Catering, and the great photo booth people who supported us yesterday as well, Photo Booth 360. We thank you as well. It was a great time had by all yesterday. Mayor Bass showed up yesterday and hung out with us for a while, and Assemblywoman Tina McKinner showed up, and Capri Maddox from the L.A. Civil and Human Rights Commission showed up. It's just a great day, but mostly just everyday people who listen to this station, who came out to celebrate what we are attempting to do here. And once again, I thank you. You heard Whitney Houston, in case you've just tuned in, because June is Black Music Month, and we're playing some of the best of Whitney all 3 hours of today's program. We'll see who's on tap for tomorrow, but we actually love the month of June because it just gives us an excuse, at least, to play a lot more music than we normally do, given that we are a talk station. But it's good to hear the smooth and soulful sounds of one Whitney Houston. In this hour, 2 conversations, as I promised. We're going to introduce you in this hour to 2 of our new hosts who join us as we start our 3rd campaign. And we will introduce you on the backside of this hour to a woman named Jill Monroe, whose program premieres tonight, in fact, at 9 p.m. She's taking over the new 9 p.m. to 12 midnight slot. Jill will be in here in a few minutes, and we'll talk about what you can expect from her program, again, starting tonight at 9 p.m. Pacific time, that is, on KBLA Talk 1580. But I'm pleased to be joined in studio now by a person whose voice is really not new to this station. You've heard him before, and he because he's so good and he's so amazing, we twisted his arm into doing his own show because he appears on everybody else's show around here. We're always calling Dr. Tyrone Howard out of UCLA. He is a distinguished professor of education in the School of Education and Information Studies at UCLA, best-selling author, president of the American Educational Research Association, and now one of our new hosts. His program is called You Must Learn. It will premiere this Saturday at 10 a.m. and be heard every Saturday at 10 a.m. with a repeat on Sundays. But every Saturday at 10 a.m. you will hear Dr. Tyrone Howard's program called You Must Learn, commencing this weekend. Dr. Howard, good to have you back in the studio, my friend. How are you, sir?
Doing excellent, my brother. How are you?
Man, if I complained, I'd be an ingrate. You know me. I'm just excited about year 3 and excited about these new shows that we're launching, some on weekdays, some on weekends, but just continuing to fine-tune this operation, as it were, and bring folk in this audience the kinds of conversations that I know they will be empowered by.
Congratulations on that. 3 years.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a big deal. We're just getting started, man. I'm glad to have you join us on this third campaign. Let me start with this, and we'll get into the program You Must Learn in just a second here. But tell me a bit about Tyrone Howard. I mean, we hear you again on you've been on my show, on Ariva's show, Dominique's show, other places. But tell me about Tyrone Howard and how he got to UCLA and getting this doctorate and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'm a product of everyday people, right? And I am oftentimes humbled, and I got to pinch myself to think about the opportunity I have to do what I do, because I always tell folks in many ways this story should not have happened. I'm a product of Compton, California, growing up in the 70s and the 80s when it was all kind of craziness going on. Lost far too many folks to the craziness of what happened with drugs and gangs. But I had a mother and father who were very much anchored in the fact that education is your tool, education is your pathway. And so we had big pictures up on the wall of Angela Davis and Malcolm X. So there was not only education, but it was also black folk education that was just sort of near and dear to my heart because my folks made sure that we got that. And I used education as my pathway. And my mother would have us read every night. We used to have a little Ebony Junior magazine. She wanted to make sure we had ourselves represented in what we Ebony magazine, Essence magazine, Jet magazine. So blackness was all around us growing up in Compton. And I just said, I'm going to do this education thing as long as I can. But my mother always told me, I don't want you to grow up to be an educated fool. Understand where you come from. She made it a point to always make sure that we were connected with my grandparents. My father took us down south, Louisiana, a little rural town called Patterson, Louisiana, where these were like folks who worked their behinds off, right? And so I got a sense of that this is bigger than me, right? There are folks who made this possible. And so for me, it's about how do I use whatever education I've gotten to try to help create more pathways for folks like I did. So that's who I am.
Yeah. Were your parents educated?
It's funny. My mom had a high school diploma. My dad went back. He was in the service, but went back and got his degree with the GI Bill, and then later went on and got a master's degree, which I think set a standard. I remember my dad sitting down with his legal pad, taking notes, reading books, and I was a kid thinking, "Why, my Pop's is an old man. What's he reading? What is he writing?" He said, "Education. Once you get it, they can't take it from you."
I asked that question because, and you'll appreciate this, you probably see where I'm going already in your prescience. I am always amazed. I'm always humbled. We just spent an hour, as you heard, talking about the black working class in this country. And so many of that working class, so many in that working class for decades on end, didn't have the opportunity to be educated themselves. But they knew the value of education. My parents only have high school diplomas. And here I am, doing what I do. I've got brothers and sisters who have more education than I have even. Of course, I tease them. They don't have 20 honorary doctorate degrees like I do. Of course, they are all honorary.
Doctors nonetheless, though.
Yeah, I got a bunch of them, man. And let me pivot for a second. I have friends who shall remain nameless who have honorary doctorate degrees, and when they get one, they insist that you call them doctor.
That's right.
And let me just say this. I say it in love. Some people may or may not know this. I say it in love because she was a godmother to me. Maya Angelou never earned a doctorate. Maya Angelou did not earn a doctorate.
Come on now.
She got a whole bunch of honoraries, and she insisted that you call her Dr. Maya Angelou. I said in love. I'm not that way. I got 20 some odd, but I've never insisted on that. But so I have great respect for people like Tyrone Howard who earned those doctorate degrees, and so they deserve to be called doctor. And so we always refer to him, of course, as Dr. Tyrone Howard.
But you got the doctor in life, though. That's the thing. So come on.
Yeah, I'm working.
Black folk in America, you earn a doctorate every single day, right?
Yeah, that is true. But I'm always amazed. I want to get your take on this. Let me do this when we come forward. I want to get your take on these working class, as Sly Stone would say, everyday black people who were not privileged to be educated themselves, but nonetheless demanded and insisted, like your mama did, that we get educated. We'll talk about that. Our guest in this first half hour of this final hour of our program today is Dr. Tyrone Howard, UCLA distinguished professor and now the host of You Must Learn, commencing this Saturday and every Saturday at 10 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Have you faced discrimination in Los Angeles? The City of LA Civil Rights Department can help. They investigate private sector discrimination in LA City in commerce, education, employment, and housing. If you're facing discrimination, submit a complaint online for free at laisforeveryone.com. That's laisforeveryone.com or call 213-978-1845.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth. And if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate hikes are expected. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges on your tax debt daily. So if you owe the IRS today, you will owe even more tomorrow. and it doesn't stop until you get right with the IRS. The good news is getting right can start with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. In fact, the experts at Optima Tax have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Find a righteous rage, and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
I don't know why I like it. I just do.
That's Whitney Houston. I'm Tavis Smiley. He's Dr. Tyrone Howard. He's the host of a brand new program premiering this Saturday at 10 a.m., every Saturday at 10 a.m., called You Must Learn on KBLA Talk 1580. We are honored to have Dr. Tyrone Howard join our lineup as one of the many brilliant hosts you hear day in and day out on this station. And I should say, I mean, one of the things I'm proudest of is that our weekend lineup is as cold as our weekday lineup. And let me just tell you, most stations don't give you that. You get the best during the weekdays, and they can care less about the weekends. There are a lot of stations, and I've resisted this. I hope I can continue to resist. But many stations, talk stations, do infomercials on the weekends. They just sell the time. They just sell what we call block programming. They sell block programming and make a bunch of money, and we're not trying to do that here. It's a slow build. We're 2 years in, starting year 3 today. But I am as proud of our weekend lineup as I am of our weekday lineup. So if you're not checking us out on the weekends, you're missing a lot of good information on the weekends. And Dr. Tyrone Howard joins the lineup this weekend, Saturday at 10 a.m. and every Saturday thereafter. You will hear his program called You Must Learn here on KBLA Talk 1580. He and I were talking during the break, and as is always the case, I'm around him. I am learning. I must learn when I'm around Tyrone Howard. I ain't got no choice. He's just dropping it that way. But let me come back to this point we were talking about moments ago. Speaking of the black working class earlier on this program today, so many of our ancestors didn't have a chance to be educated. Of course, back to slavery, they were harmed, if not killed, for trying to read and write back then. So here we are advancing to segregation, to Jim Crow and Jane Crow, all these black folk who are growing the working class in this country, but don't have a chance again themselves to be educated, and yet they stress education. I mentioned to you during the break, I am the first person on either side of my family, mother or father's side, the first person to go to college. I go, and then that opens up a door, right? So now I've got siblings who've gone to Hampton and gone to Morehouse and other schools. Some of my siblings have more education than I have at this point because I opened that door and they followed me through. So it can, in fact, be a game changer. I love how you refer to your father, though, as a cycle breaker.
Yeah, he was the first in his family on either side to go to college. And I think what happens because of the way that, structural racism plays itself out, there's generation upon generation of black folk who want more, who aspire for more, but can't quite get more. And so my dad, like many other black men during the, 20s, 30s, and 40s, higher education wasn't really a pathway, but the military was. And so he used the military as a way to get this GI Bill. And once the GI Bill kicked in, it was a game changer because now, after he got out, he found that even though he had served his country, opportunity still wasn't sitting there waiting for him like a lot of other black folks found out. So he said, let me start taking a couple classes at City College. City College turned into him getting a 4-year degree. And once he went, I went, my brother went, cousins went. So he's the cycle breaker. Much like you, Tavis, it takes one person to show that it's possible and the floodgates can open.
Yep. How hopeful are you? Here again, something else we discussed in today's program early on. I always say all the time, I love how these dots connect from hour to hour to hour. I never know how the dots are going to come together, but it does. So let me ask you, with regard to reparations, we were just talking about this in our last hour, given that we are a day after Juneteenth, and we were talking again about the working class. How hopeful are you that however we end up defining reparations in this state and maybe even in this country, because everybody's watching California, obviously, however we end up ultimately defining reparations, this notion of reparative justice, how hopeful are you that it includes some aspect, some component of higher education, like the GI Bill, which gave your father and many other Americans back then a chance at a free education?
Yeah, I'm incredibly hopeful and eternally optimistic that whatever comes about, and I'm growing increasingly optimistic that something will happen, but it has to have education as a piece of it because I think, and I'm obviously biased, education is a game changer. Education can open up doors, create pathways. We see folks who have more education are more politically engaged. They have higher life satisfaction. They're more likely to give back. They're more likely to help other family members. So you have to think about something within this reparation framework that talks about either free access to higher education or reducing of student loan debt that cripples so many black folks in this country, high quality early childhood education for black children. But education has to be an anchor of whatever we're doing. If you're trying to help heal a people, education has to be a part of that framework. Otherwise, you're going to miss the mark.
Yeah. It breaks my heart every time I hear some young person, and I've heard too many say this to me in a variety of spaces and places, that they didn't go to college, are not going to college because they don't think that the debt that they are going to incur is worth the piece of paper. I've heard that countless times. I'm sure you've heard it as an educator countless times. That's one of the reasons why I'm hopeful that this definition of reparations will include, as you said, some component of higher education. But how heartbreaking is it for you, given your backstory coming out of Compton, when you hear black folks say, thought about it, and they're capable of doing the work, but they don't want to incur the debt, and they don't think that the paper is worth that. Spending 4 years to get it isn't worth it. Talk to me.
My grandfather had a saying that I use to this day. He used to always tell us, you limit my learning, you limit my earning. And so what I try to do is make it plain for black folks. Like, yes, you may feel as if this degree is not worth your time, but the data has been clear for a very long time. There's a direct correlation between income and net wealth and education. So you may choose to bypass this, but you are going to look at a long life of different challenges. Are there going to be exceptions to the rule? Of course there will be. But at the end of the day, I tell young folks that the decisions you make at 15 will affect you at 50. The decision you make at 16 will affect you at 60, and so on down the line. So yes, it's a short-term sacrifice for long-term benefit. And I always make this argument as well. You can choose to play now, but you'll pay later. Or you can go ahead and pay now, put the time, the commitment, the dedication into your education, and it gives you more opportunities to play later. But either way, you're going to pay. And so I try to get young black folks to see the big picture and to recognize that the correlation is just overwhelmingly strong, that the higher levels of education you have, the more options you have with income, with wealth, the list goes on.
Your program, You Must Learn, again, beginning this Saturday at 10 a.m. on KBLA Talk 1580, is going to cover a variety of things in the education space. And there's a lot to cover, obviously. We say right here, there's a whole lot to talk about. We got a lot to talk about, right? So you'll do that. But one of the things I am certain you're going to be wrestling with on your program, I wrestle with it all the time, is, and let me pivot and just say, as I referenced earlier in this conversation, today on our show, I should say, racism, to my mind, is perhaps the most intractable issue still in this country. But if I'm wrong about that, the education gap, the achievement gap ain't far behind. It's a stubborn gap. And I wonder how, as a talk show host, as an educator, how you approach addressing an issue, as you will, week in and week out, that seems so intractable.
Yeah, so I'm glad you raised the issue around the achievement gap, because the achievement gap to me is racialized. I don't think you can talk about it about anything in education without talking about the racialized component of it. And so what we will unpack is the ways in which almost any topic you can cover in the educational landscape has some racial sort of undertones to it. Black folks have been really the pioneers of educational justice, or at least the pursuit of educational justice in this country. Show me any other group of folks non-white folks who have gotten any kind of progress around the educational landscape. Black folks are usually at the forefront of helping to raise the questions and begin to think about policies that can become more inclusive. So what we want to do is begin to lift up some of those issues and talk about the racialized component of it. But if I can go one step further, I agree with you, Tavis, that the issue of race is the most intractable sort of issue we face in our country. But in many ways, the issue around race, another component to it is anti-black racism, which I think speaks to the unique sets of experiences that black folks have that still plays out in education, in schools, in classrooms, in colleges and universities every single day, even in 2023. So we're covering everything from early childhood education to graduate school, law school, medical school, and everything in between. The role that folks play as parents and caregivers, the role that teachers play, the role that community-based organizations play. There's so many levels to this thing, but we've got to begin to think about how we can be change agents in our own outcome and our own destiny, because there's a long line of black folks who have constantly made sacrifices for us to be able to have these opportunities today.
We sit here in California, in Los Angeles specifically, and there have been any number of conversations over the years. As you know, some of these conversations are happening right now. The city council here in L.A. Is engaging conversation about whether or not 15 council members is too small for a city this big. There are 5 supervisors in L.A. County. Some of their districts are bigger than some states in this country. And there's conversation about whether or not 5 is too small a number for the county. There was a conversation years ago, as you recall, about whether California was too big a state, and there was a separatist movement to like they have North Dakota and South Dakota and North Carolina and South Carolina, to have Northern California and Southern California. The state is too big. This state is bigger than many nations around the world. California is a big place, and I think the bigness of everything around here makes that intractability more difficult to address. It's everything is such a behemoth that it's hard to get your arms around it. You see where I'm going here?
Absolutely.
Is education the same thing?
It is, because it is huge. It's the marketplace of ideas. A lot of folks think I've been to school, so therefore I'm an education expert. But the bottom line is there are those who have raised the question if this thing was ever designed for black folk in the first place, which I think is a reasonable question. But yeah, there's so many layers to this. And what we are also going to unpack is that there are in-school factors, but there are also out-of-school factors we have to talk about, right? What's the role of our larger community? What's the role of various political stakeholders? How do we think about the roles of health and environment and this school to prison pipeline? There's so many layers to this, but we got to unpack it. We've got some folks right here in Southern California who are some game changers, who are pushing up against the envelope, debunking the stereotypes, showing us that it's possible to lift up black folk and other marginalized folks when it comes to educational opportunity.
So you asked this question somewhat rhetorically. I want to ask it practically and directly, whether or not this system was in fact created with the considerations of black people.
So how much time we got for that one?
Well, you have an hour every Saturday, starting this Saturday at 10 a.m. You got 2 minutes right about now.
I'll tee it up this way. I don't think that it was initially designed for us, but black folks, we will take something and we will make it what we think it needs to be to meet our ends. And that's what we did historically in this country. We took education as it was initially created, and we modified and we tweaked and we changed and we made all the different adjustments. There's a long history of folks in the segregated South who said, we will make this thing work for us. And so I think we have made inroads in that way, but I think we still got a lot of work to go, because far too many of our folks are falling through the cracks. And I'm not one who blames families and young people. I blame systems and structures that need to be either reformed or in some cases dismantled to serve the needs, not just academically, but socially, culturally, and emotionally of black folks.
I assume that at some point in one of these programs, you'll put a spotlight specifically on the challenges that black boys uniquely face. Say a word about that.
Yeah, this is my passion project, right? As a young black male, I saw too many talented, bright, full of joy, just like I'm sure you did, black boys not reach the point of being where they could have been. So this is something that's personal for me. I've written about it. I've researched on it. So yes, lifting up black boys and successful black boys and ways we advocate for black boys will certainly be a big focus on what we do, because we get black boys right, we get black families right, we can get the black nation in a much better place.
As long as black boys are not taught by black men and black women, can you change the game?
I don't think you can, because there's an antithetical sort of dynamic that's in place between black boys and the overwhelming number of teachers that they have who are white women. The history between those folks is I don't need to go into. They may mean well, but just because you mean well doesn't do well. We need black folks in front of black children.
Finally, here, tell me something about your first show, your premiere show this Saturday at 10 a.m.
Oh, I'm excited. We got Dr. Letitia Johnson Davis coming in, who is a master of one of the, I think, crown jewels here of Southern California, Baldwin Hills Elementary, which has gotten all kind of national and statewide recognition for what it does, incorporating culture and learning and elevating black children. If you've not seen that school, you are missing, I think, something that should be a model for educating black children across the country. She'll be here with us, and she's going to talk about the sort of the work she's done there at Baldwin Hills for close to a decade.
Yeah. His name is Dr. Tyrone Howard. He is a distinguished professor of education in the School of Education and Information Studies at UCLA, best-selling author. He's the current president of the American Educational Research Association, so you know how honored we have to have someone of his stature join the lineup here at KBLA Talk 1580. His program is called You Must Learn, and the first episode, the premiere episode, this Saturday at 10 a.m. and every Saturday thereafter at 10 a.m. with a repeat on Sundays. Dr. Howard, I'm saying congratulations in advance because I know you're going to kill it this Saturday and all the weeks to come, but we are so honored, sir, to have you on KBLA.
Honor is mine. I can't thank you enough, Tavis, for creating the platform for this work, so thank you. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate you. After news, traffic, and sports, another host I want to introduce you to, Jill Monroe, whose program premieres tonight at 9 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Pennsylvania, some activists in Pittsburgh are ramping up the calls for an end to violent crime. Tim Stevens with the Black Political Empowerment Project used yesterday's Juneteenth holiday as an opportunity to rally the community behind a message of change and peace. Stevens says the young people and families of Pittsburgh's neighborhoods need to be freed from violence and to end the pattern of killing and loss. Johnsonville LLC is recalling more than 42,000 pounds of pork sausage links that were shipped to 8 different states. The Better with Cheddar links may be contaminated with thin strands of black plastic fibers. The company says there's a very low risk for adverse health effects if consumed. The packages have a best buy date of July 11th and were produced in late January. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Calling all night owls, Buffalo Wild Wings is open late. Fill up on some tasty apps with an ice cold tall beer starting at $4. Late night food and drinks start at $4 from 10 till close at B-Dubs. Limited time at participating locations. Offers, days, and times may vary. Drink responsibly. Void where prohibited. Tax and fees extra.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are back in action tonight in Anaheim against the Angels. The Dodgers have a lot of work to do to get right. They were swept at home by the Giants over the weekend and dropped to third in the NL West. Venus Williams won her first match over a top 50 opponent in 4 years. The 43-year-old Williams defeated Camilla Giorgi in a 3-set tiebreaker in the first round of the Birmingham Classic in England. It's also been 4 years since Williams won back-to-back matches. This is her first competition in 6 months after recovering from a hamstring injury. Draymond Green declined a player option of $27.5 million to re-sign with Golden State for next season. Green, who has played his entire 11-year NBA career with Golden State, is now an unrestricted free agent. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
The pandemic may be over, but many Angelinos could be at risk of losing the place they call home. It's important to know your rights as a residential renter in the city of LA. Did you know eviction protection still exists for unpaid COVID-19 rental debt that was due before March 31st, 2023? And that you have 5 days to respond to an eviction notice, also known as an unlawful detainer. Learn more about your rental rights at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home. Hey LA, keep your utility bills low this summer while making your home the cool place to be. LADWP can help you save hundreds with air conditioner and thermostat rebates, plus free energy efficient home upgrades and simple tips to help you beat the heat and save money. Visit ladwp.com/cool-LA. JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
If your Medi-Cal is ending, Cover California is here to help. Cover California is a service from the state that helps you get affordable health insurance. In many cases, at no cost to you, just like with Medi-Cal. We have quality health plans and will help you every step of the way to get the one that works for you and your family. So, if you're no longer eligible for Medi-Cal, check out Cover California. We'll keep you covered. Learn more at coveredca.com.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Each day I live, I want to be a day to give the best of me. I'm only one, but not alone. My finest day is yet unknown. I broke my heart for every gain, to taste the sweet. I face the pain. I rise and fall, yet through it all, this much remains. I want one moment in time.
It's the best of Whitney Houston on KBLA Talk 1580. June is Black Music Month, and as we have done every day this month and will continue for the remainder of this month, on our program, we feature an iconic artist and try to give you some of the best of their stuff over the 3 hours of this program. And so Whitney Houston got the call today, and she's been our artist in residence. We like to put it that way for all 3 hours of today's program. Looking forward to another great artist tomorrow. But Whitney sounding good on KBLA Talk 1580. So you just met Dr. Tyrone Howard, whose new program, You Must Learn, will premiere this Saturday at 10 a.m. and be heard every Saturday at 10 a.m. Going to be a great program with Dr. Tyrone Howard. Tonight, though, at 9 p.m., we are pleased to introduce you now to Jill Monroe, Her program is called RSVP with Jill Monroe. I like that, RSVP with Jill Monroe, and we hope you will RSVP to listen to Jill Monroe tonight and every night. Again, 9 p.m. To 12 midnight. Her name is Jill Monroe, and I'm glad to have her in studio. Jill, how are you today?
I'm amazing. How are you?
If I complained about being in, great. You know me. It's good to see you. You came out yesterday and hung out with us.
I did. It was an amazing time. Beautiful location, great music, food. Lots of fun.
No, it was a lot of fun, and so I'm glad that you came out. And I think we had a lot of hosts out yesterday. Most of our team was out yesterday. Some of them are out of town. Dominique is in South Africa, so she wasn't there. And by the way, if you didn't know this, make sure you tune in to Dominique's program, First Things First, with Dominique DePrima every morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific, just in advance of me. Dominique is in South Africa, and she's broadcasting live every day for how many days, Miles? Is it through this week, next week, 2 weeks? Yeah, so she's gone for a couple of weeks, and she'll be broadcasting live from South Africa. So make sure that you. She sounded really good this morning. As a matter of fact, I was teasing our first guest after I mentioned that Dominique was in South Africa. I brought up my first guest on the phone line. His phone line sounded like crap. Dominique had just been on for 3 hours from South Africa and sounded brilliant. So I said, you know what, let's take a break and ship you up to South Africa right quick. And when we come forward, maybe your phone line will sound better. But it was just funny. Technology is weird like that. He was in D.C. and sounded horrible. She's in South Africa. It's not like she's in the studio. But we invested some money to make sure she had the right equipment to take with her. So she sounds as good as she does. But Dominique DePrima, live in South Africa this week and next week. So do not miss a single episode of her program as she broadcasts from the motherland. But Jill Monroe begins this evening at 9 p.m. She'll be here every night, Monday through Friday, 9 to midnight. And when you and I sat and talked about this, I told you, I've done this 9 to midnight shift.
Yes.
Earlier in my career, not here at this station, which is why I don't do it now, because I've done it before in my career. It can be a tough shift, 9 to midnight, because a lot happens in this city. But the good news is a lot of folk are in their cars because so much happens in this city. So people do tune in. That I can tell you. But before I get into it, this 9 to midnight shift that you start holding down tonight, tell me about Jill Monroe.
So Jill Monroe is an L.A. native, born right here in Los Angeles, grew up not too far from our studios in Leimert Park. So I am a real, true, authentic LA girl. Want to put that out there. That shapes my perspective with a lot of things. Grew up in and around the entertainment industry, have been working in various capacities. I've worked for companies like Virgin Records, Sony Pictures Entertainment, BET Networks, in PR, marketing, brand development, programming. So a lot of experience on the corporate side in entertainment. And then about, well over a decade ago, I started a sports and culture website called JocksonStilettoJill.com. We talked about sports and lifestyle and some entertainment bits, and it evolved from there. And now, fast forward, I started hosting. I'm a red carpet host. I work with an online website called EUR Web and cover red carpets for them, talk to creators and celebrities and stars from your favorite films and TV shows. And with that, Robin Ayers, who is on with the Rob Report at 6 p.m. here, we hosted an after show together for the Power franchise. And so when Robin started her show here, she invited me on to be a contributor, and here I am.
Here you are, and we're excited about it. So the distinction I should mention, since you went there, between your show and Robin's show is strictly entertainment. That's what we want it to be. She follows Areva Martin, who does a brilliant show every day from 4 to 6. Areva Martin in real time is 4 to 6. And then Robin comes in at 6 and sort of shifts gears and gets ready for Zoe to come on at 7. So Areva does hard news 4 to 6. Robin comes in and gives you the top trending stories of the day in the world of entertainment. Jill will cover some entertainment stories, no question about that. It's the world we live in, right? Everybody's covering entertainment stories. I cover entertainment stories depending on the story. But beyond entertainment, it's sports, it's culture, it's lifestyles. You're gonna get a lot more. Of course, Robin's show is 1 hour, a brilliant 1 hour show, but Jill's show is 3 hours, so a lot more ground to cover. So again, sports and culture and lifestyle. We'll come to sports in a second because you're a girl. I can see that. And we'll talk about your love of sports in a moment. But let me come back to this notion that you raised a moment ago. My friend Ren Brown was there yesterday as well at our gathering, and I do have some friends in this town who were born in this town. We were laughing with Ren yesterday. Ren is now, his family is now 3rd, 4th, 5th generation Los Angelinos. So I said, Negro, if anybody gets a check, you're going to get one first when they start passing out reparations checks. He knows that his family roots are in this state. You're an L.A. native, and you said a moment ago that in many ways shapes your worldview. How so?
I think that, for one thing, that growing up in Los Angeles, especially, I'm a Gen Xer. We don't have to get into specifics right now. But I think that you grow up seeing the Latino community. We have a very heavy Mexican community here. The two have always kind of intermixed, sometimes in battles, sometimes coming together. So I think that from that perspective, it kind of shapes your outlook, how you look at local politics. I think that the Black community here, as it's shifted and moved, we've watched it move throughout the city, its early roots on Central Avenue, over there, as it moved across the city into this area, Inglewood. And we've also seen the reverse as more Black people are leaving the city and the state of California. Sure. So I think that it shapes how we view ourselves here, how people view the community. There's definitely a perception of Los Angeles from people that have moved here for different purposes. They may stick to the valley or certain areas and don't know about the rich community and history that is here. So I think that it is important to get to know the city and to understand that if you want to get close to the Black community, the best way to do it is to visit this area and other areas and learn about the deep roots and connections that are here and shaped.
As a person born and raised in this city, in the Black skin the Black body that you inhabit, how do you process the gentrification that I mentioned a moment ago that's happening in this area, in other Black spaces? It's real as rain, and I know this because I work for Tom Bradley. Tom Bradley, of course, the longest-serving mayor in this city. It'll never happen again because they've changed the rules. You can't serve but 2 terms now. Karen Bass hung out with us yesterday at our event, but Tom Bradley was there for 5 terms, and I worked for him for part of that. I know that every year he ran for re-election over that 20-year period, the number of Black people in the city of L.A. proper was decreasing. So Black folk in the city proper were decreasing, moving to all these outlying areas. Some moved because of drugs and gangs. Some moved because of affordability. Some moved because they wanted to be homeowners. A lot of reasons people were moving out of the city, Black folk now. We were just talking earlier today on our program about the Black working class, right? So folk were moving out of the city. And now you see in spaces like Leimert Park, where we are, in Inglewood. I saw some white folk the other day, and I asked them where they live. They said, I live in Iwood. I said, excuse me? What's Iwood? They come in, they change the name, they won't change the culture. So gentrification has real world consequences. As a Black person born and raised in this city, when you see the numbers of Black people in this city dwindling, even though we have an African American mayor, how do you read that?
Well, I think that when my parents moved here, as I said, I grew up not too far from here in Ladera Heights. They experienced white flight, and that was what was happening with our neighborhood. We watched our neighborhood change, go from primarily white and Jewish to primarily Black in the mid-'80s and early '90s. And then, as you mentioned, the reverse started happening as gang culture picked up and some other things. So you see the improvements that come to the area when others come in, and it kind of makes you sad but happy for your area. Let's face it, a lot of home values have gone up. That is more for Black wealth, and there are more Black businesses, but it makes you sad that you know that your coworker may not be able to get into the area because they don't have a fully cash down payment that others might have. So I think it's a mixed bag. We have to see if we can. You know, we're not saying others can't move in. You're not being welcoming, but you want to make sure the roots and what built the area and the things that make it special stay in place, because culture is important.
Yep, it is indeed. And because she's an L.A. native, she knows this city better than most, and we are excited to have this L.A. native commencing tonight at 9 p.m. host her own program called RSVP with Jill Monroe. A great deal more to talk to Jill Monroe about when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward. We've got a lot to talk about.
Are you interested in catching up on all the latest entertainment news, trending topics, and exciting interviews? I got you. Tune in to The Raw Report with Robin Ayers, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. I'm your host, Robin Ayers. Join me every weekday with some of the best entertainment contributors in the business as we break down what's going on, who's got next, and what not to miss. Only on The Raw Report with Robin Ayers.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like watering your lawn during the hottest time of the day and leaky faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
Heart failure, carpal tunnel syndrome, shortness of breath, stomach issues, lower back pain. How does it all add up? If you have heart failure and any of those seemingly unrelated symptoms sound familiar, it's time to talk with your cardiologist and get the full picture. They may add up to transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy. ATTR-CM is a rare and underdiagnosed disease. Recognize the signs and discuss them with your doctor soon. Learn more at connectwithyourheart.com. That's connectwithyourheart.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Do you struggle with occasional nerve aches in your hands or feet? Try Nervive Nerve Relief from the world's #1 nerve care company. Nervive tablets contain alpha-lipoic acid to relieve nerve aches, weakness, and discomfort, plus B-complex vitamins to support healthy nerve function as you age. Live life with less nerve discomfort with Nervive Nerve Relief. Learn more at nervivehealth.com. And try Nervive Pain Relieving Cream to block nerve pain signals at the source. Use as directed.
In 2020, California established the first in the nation task force to study reparations for African Americans. Their responsibility is to examine and recommend to the California State Legislature potential remedies of compensation, rehabilitation, and restitution for African Americans, with a special consideration for the descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. We encourage you to join the final meeting of the task force in Sacramento on Thursday, June 29th, starting at 9 a.m. in the first floor auditorium of the March Fong Yu Secretary of State building. To learn more about reparations and the task force, visit the California Department of Justice website at oag.ca.gov, where you can also get details about how to participate in the hearing virtually if you cannot participate in person on Thursday, June 29th for this final public hearing where the task force will present their final recommendations. For more information, reach out to Charles Communication Group at 888-326-0010. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, could potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
Listening to Tavis Smiley and Jill Monroe, who is the host of a brand new show premiering tonight at 9 p.m. Called RSVP with Jill Monroe, and we want you to do just that, to RSVP to her program, and listen tonight and every night as she gives you the best in sports and culture and lifestyle and entertainment, which is her bailiwick. So it's going to be a great show covering a lot of ground. So speaking of which, how did you, Miles and I were laughing, we do what we call it piloting, and they do it for television and for radio. So when we decide to bring somebody on to our station, we spend some time piloting 2 or 3 shows to make sure that we are who we are, they are who we think they are, number one, and that they can handle the pressure of being live on talk radio every day. So we do these pilots. And Miles and I were talking while we were doing Jill's pilot about how adept she is at covering and talking about sports. So how did you become such a sports enthusiast?
You know, as a kid growing up, my father was a football fan. He played football in college, watched basketball. Again, I'm from here, so he had season tickets to the Rams. Back in the day, I would go with him. I would sit at his feet with my Barbies while he watched games and stuff like that. So it was a natural thing that, I kind of learned from my father, and it was something that we did together. My mom likes basketball too. So that's how it started. And, growing up, I was a cheerleader. I tried to play. I'm a little short, so didn't work out too well. So I knew my lane.
Yeah.
And my lane was as a fan who was very invested. And I've been following, especially the NBA. I watched NFL, a little bit of baseball growing up, but that was more of a thing, especially here. But NBA is my heart. So I'm a Magic Johnson fan, a Kobe fan, lifelong Lakers fan, and that's where it came from.
Yeah,
very dedicated.
Well, you get along well with Andy. Your board op. Andy is is a big Laker fan as well, so I'm sure we're getting a bunch of Laker talk. There are some Clipper fans in this building, though, just so you know.
I support the Clippers, know. The Clippers, I used to say, because I actually had season tickets to the Clippers, and I worked for Nike. I forgot to mention that. And the Clippers I worked in brand marketing, one of the teams that I worked closely with. Right. So I felt like the Clippers at the time were a blue-collar team. Steve Ballmer has a lot of cash, and he's invested in the team. They're building out their new arena. They just have to stay healthy and keep things together. I think it's time for some changes to happen with that lineup. Kawhi and that knee, great player as he is, we have to see him more than like 5 times a year. Tyrone Lue might be moving on. I think he's getting a little tired. So, there's lots of things to talk about the Clippers, too. I won't ignore them. I'm not mad at them. They're just not my favorite.
I got you. I was in Inglewood the other day. That stadium's coming along, the Intuit Dome.
Yes, 2024.
It looks good. To your point, Steve Ballmer has a lot of money, but that stadium looks like it's going to be a really nice place for fans and certainly for the players on the team. Let me just ask you a broad question. What do you make of this intersection, which after all these years is as dynamic as ever? This intersection of sport and race. A number of ways we could talk about it, but just broadly speaking, what do you make of the intersection of sport and race these days?
I think that as we have evolved, athletes have become full-blown celebrities. When, let's say, you take Jim Brown, who is someone that was very close to you, and Kareem and that whole era, they were fighting in a way for a different cause, and they were fighting for their visibility as well. Now, because these athletes have received the visibility, they've been on top, their athletic prowess has stood out, I think that we are starting to more so respect them as fans for their intelligence, what goes on behind. They sell us a lifestyle. So within that lifestyle, we want to know who you are as a person. And I think that, there's the fun ways that we get into, but when you talk about race and the things that have just by nature that have happened, police brutality, Black Lives Matter movement, we have demanded more of our heroes during this time period. And so I think that sports is something that kind of is an equalizer almost. We know nothing really is, but where fans come together and they kind of can overlook that for those 2.5, 3 hours or whatever that they're watching a game or a fight or a match, whatever it may be. And so I think that it's sometimes easier for others to respect an athlete and see their point of view because they can relate to them.
Speed of sports, big fight coming up. Crawford and Spence.
Yes.
Who you got?
I am unsure. I went to the press conference last week. That was pretty exciting. I like a little trash. I am a sports fan that likes a little trash talk. I think the bravado makes it more exciting. I'm going to see how they do in their camps. They're both undefeated, so that makes it exciting. I think that seeing 2 black fighters is something that is going to be a payoff for the audience, and they are both serious about their craft and ready, so I think it's going to be a good fight. I'll make a prediction later on RSVP, and we'll talk about it.
Okay, well, I'll make my prediction now. I think it's Spence.
Think so?
That's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong
about that. You're not going with Bud. You're going to leave Bud out there?
Yeah, I think I'm going with Spence on this one. But anyways, you can see she's adept at talking about sports as well. Culture and lifestyle. It is fascinating for me the ways in which we've always done this, but it's just becoming more and more undeniable. The imprint that African Americans place on culture and lifestyle in this country. If we do it, everybody else, of course, copies us. But whether it's music, whether it's sport, it's art, it's fashion, it can be any number of things. But there is never a shortage of conversations for you to tap into when it comes to culture, lifestyle, and black folk.
I mean, absolutely. I feel one of the best American exports is Black American culture. It is one of the most successful. As you mentioned, it's one of the ones that is most copied. And it's changing. It's changing as we enter into a digital age where there are more ways for us to tap into other areas and make that imprint happen. It's changing in the conversations that we have around the diaspora. And, even things like food. What is considered food, reparations, all of these things are coming into the mix. And again, there are more outlets for us to touch different parts and different places. And we see our impact in so many things, in K-pop, in, even in the artists. Like World Beats Africa is obviously something that is unique to their culture and they developed, but we know kind of in there at its heart of it, it is inspired in some way by Black American music and hip hop and that movement.
No question,
So
no question.
just seeing the blending of all of these things, there's so many different ways we can look at it, discussions that we can have, new elements of entertainment too. So
Speaking of food, one of the new shows that we are launching this week is a food show. People ask me all the time, are you going to do a show like this and a show about this and a show about that? I said, we're only 2 years in. Give me time. We're working our way into that. We finally have a food show that I think you're going to really, really enjoy. So as I said earlier, throughout this week, we're introducing you to some other new hosts on our station. There are actually a total of 5 new shows being launched this week, including RSVP with Jill Monroe, which premieres again tonight at 9 p.m. Speaking of which, tell me about your premiere show tonight.
So my premiere show tonight, we will talk about The Blackening, which is a movie that came out over the weekend. We'll have some interview clips from the cast. It's a horror movie. If everyone in the cast is Black, who dies first? They have to play a game to establish their Blackness and to see who's going to outlive this homicidal maniac.
Right.
So that'll be fun. We're going to talk to podcaster and author Trent the Artist, Trent Jackson. He calls himself your Keep It Real friend. He has a podcast called In the Mix with Trent.
We all need one, don't we? We all need one
We
Keep It Real
all
friend.
need a Keep It Real friend. So
Yeah.
he's going to go in on these trending topics with me. We're going to get into some of that. We're going to talk John Morant and some of the things that he's come out and said about the NBA. We're going to talk a little Zion. The NBA draft is coming up. So later this week, we'll have an interview with Scoot Henderson, who is on deck for the NBA draft on Thursday. And we'll talk with him. We have showrunner, not tonight, but coming up. But we're going to tease some things. Get to know me, get to know the task. But later this week, Tiffany Mills, who is the showrunner for Gabrielle Union's Journey to Africa for her 50th birthday. So we'll talk about being a Black woman, working in this business, going to Africa and her experience there and sort of what that was like. So we have a lot of things in store for you and a culture conversation. There's a good question that we ask every night. So lots in store.
We'll tune in tonight to see what the good question is on tonight's program.
It's a good one.
So it's culture, it's lifestyle, it's sports, it's entertainment, it's all that and then some. It's RSVP with Jill Monroe premiering tonight at 9 p.m. right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Congratulations in advance.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you later tonight. That's our show for today. Thanks for tuning in. Back tomorrow morning to do it all over again, Lord willing. Until then, thanks for tuning in. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica